Okay, so I did a bit of a coding session when I wasn't well, and I wasn't talking through it because I was coughing all the time and stuff. So I'm just watching this back and gonna talk about what I did. So I'm just kind of updating my little to-do list here, and identifying some more stuff that I need to do, or more parts of the engine. So I want to basically, at this point, render a quad with a texture, so can start doing more interesting things. But that'll require a texture loader, which I decided would be in this toolkit called PUT, for polymonster utility toolkit. So the toolkit lib will have things in it like texture loader, maybe maths. I haven't decided to put maths in the engine or not yet. And other various things that are like common you want to use across multiple game projects or projects, and but not platform specific code. So all the platform specific stuff goes in the engine, and then toolkit has common things that I need. So in this one I started to add some code to be able to bind a vertex buffer and also draw an indexed primitive. I added that both into the direct rendering API, so I just end up calling set index buffers and draw indexed, and then in the deferred API I make the commands to defer the call to later. And then also, after I've created that, I go on to spawn a thread which starts the renderer. So the thread starts, the render initializes, and then it waits on a semaphore. And then the game fills up the command buffer, and then when it's ready to go, it releases or signals the semaphore, and the renderer consumes the command buffer. So here also I was just redefining all of the DXGI formats to my own ones, so I don't have to have things like, I hate it when porting graphics APIs, and what a lot of the time happens is you have these little functions like convert GL type to DirectX type and all this kind of stuff. So I'm just redefining them, so go direct. So I'll just kind of have to stick with the syntax or the terminology that D3D uses basically for my API, because I can't be arsed coming up with my own ideas for all of them. And yeah, basically I just change it to pen format instead of DXGI format. But it's quite a lot of copy and pasting going on here. It was I remember it took quite a while. In hindsight, looking back at this, I should have just alt selected all of DXGI, deleted it, and then typed in pen. But I've only just moved to Visual Studio 2010, really, only a bit recently. I was using 2008 at home for ages, and you couldn't type multiple columns at the same time. So yeah, this took quite some time to just define all those types. But the thing is, as soon as I encounter those, I'm going to just define all of them, just so I have the flexibility. I've done it in the past where I don't define all of the types, and then every time you come across a new thing you need to do, like a rendering pass or something, you got to define the type for it and stuff. So hopefully the renderer should be good to use once it's all done. So just adding here the draw indexed command, and as you can see, it's just straight calls straight through. Pretty much the direct one wraps up D3D, and you'd do GL draw elements in there if you were doing a OpenGL port. And here then I'm just adding the commands to defer those. So essentially just pass some values into a struct anytime a pointer is passed to a deferred rendering call. Any data is copied into a buffer, which when after the command is finished, the copied data gets freed. So it's completely all the memory between the different threads isn't shared. It's a bit of a pain having to do all this stuff like every time, because it means like it takes like 3 times the time to do anything than just writing direct D3D into your code. But hopefully in the long run, once this is done, the benefits will really show. At the moment, the commands all just go into a union, just so it's kind of quite intuitive to actually write the code about them, and I'm not packing structs and things like that. If it becomes wasteful and the command buffer's becoming big, then it's something I'll look into. But in general, a command should maybe only have maybe like 5 U32 values, you know, like pointers or indices or numbers. You know, they're not really, it's not really going to be that much data, basically. And then there, it's got the memory free after set vertex buffers, because the set vertex buffers has an array of strides, an array of offsets, which have to be copied. Because if they're just in local scope when the deferred call is made, when the direct API picks that up, the memory will have gone out of scope. So basically here I just started to get the renderer to be started in its own thread, so it had render in it with a thread entry point, kick off the threads, and then I create some semaphores to synchronize the threads. And here just adding some sleep functions to my API. It's kind of the approach I'm taking, is when I encounter something I need, then just add the functionality in the API, do it nicely, and then over time the engines should become larger and more robust. But it's easy to let them get messy. So I know what's going to happen now. Basically, I start messing around, adding semaphores, and the semaphore actually itself is got a bug in it. So the video ends quickly, or abruptly, because I crashed the GPU because the renderer thread hadn't initialized before the game thread started making D3D calls. And it was because they should have been synchronized by waiting for each other on the semaphores, but there was a problem with the semaphore, and the wait failed because the handle was invalid, because I'd never set the handle in the semaphore create code. So again, another like a little mistake in there, because when I wrote the semaphore code, I was just getting it in to set a skeleton and a framework for how the engine was going to be, but I wasn't really using it. I knew I was going to be using it. So this will maybe continue to happen with some of the other stuff I've not tested, like the string functions and stuff like that. But it was useful sort of fleshing that stuff out, so I had some stuff to start using. The command buffer is just a ring buffer, so there's no swapping buffers or anything like that. On the deferred calls, you increment the put position of where you write into the command buffer, and then when the command buffer's executed by the D3D thread, it reads to the get pos to the put pos that the last full command buffer was written to, and then so you could buffer up multiple frames, for instance, for the command buffer to consume, and then kind of have it lockless as long as your timing's all right, that you're just chasing the tail of the buffer. But I'll see how it goes. At the moment, there is a synchronization which means that you can buffer at one frame in advance, and then it'll have to wait till it's been consumed if it gets there again. So here I even tried with a mutex, which had the same bug as a semaphore with the uninitialized handle. So also the mutex failed to lock. And then, yeah, basically while the D3D device is being created on the render thread, the game thread finished all of its draw calls and said command buffer execute. So the command buffer tried to execute on a null or uninitialized device or semi-initialized device and crashed the GPU. But yeah, it's gonna end soon. But basically what happened after I sorted that crash, I had the renderer thread, game thread and the main thread all working, and a triangle or an indexed quad, actually a quad rendered from 4 vertices, 6 indices, was rendered. And then in the next video after this, I started getting onto loading a texture and applying a texture to that.